Media studies ends up being the place that really allows you to think about how digital technology transforms society in these really fundamental ways, but it also allows you to approach it from many different perspectives.
You can do theoretical work, do academic research in the form of a traditional paper, which you do in many fields, but you can also make a documentary or a website or an audio piece. And each of those modalities allows you to grapple with those ideas in different ways and even ask new questions and develop new answers.
You know, one of the most exciting things about being in this program has really been the opportunity to experiment. And I mean, of course, as anyone who's ever done any kind of creative work knows, that it's not just working in isolation. And so being surrounded by other makers and creative thinkers and critical thinkers, whether they are your classmates or your professors, has been really exciting.
For some reason, the most interesting people in the world find their way to this little school in Manhattan. And the chemistry when they're together and the sort of architecture of the program that forces both theory and practice creates an extraordinary kind of bond, unlike anything I've ever seen.
Media studies students come from so many diverse backgrounds. One, they're not just from the US, they're from all over the world. So they're bringing this kind of global sensibility. There are also very diverse practices that come from media studies students. They're journalists, they're artists, they're writers, they're filmmakers, they're critical theorists. I always tell my students who are coming new, you're not going to learn as much from us, the faculty, you're going to learn a lot more from each other because you're all bringing the world to us.
Wow, welcome. On behalf of the members of the School of Media Studies and the New School, I welcome you to tonight's event. As many of you know, the New School doesn't often stand on ceremony. We're a community that is passionately engaged with the pressing issues of our times. We're a community of scholars, teachers, and students who diligently pursue new insights and new ways of thinking. We keep our eyes on the horizon, searching for ways to make a difference in the world. But every once in a while, say every 40 years, it's kind of interesting to take a moment to look back, to reflect, and to celebrate our history and our accomplishments. Tonight, we do just that. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the founding of Media Studies at the New School. So it's now with great pleasure that I introduce President David Van Zandt. He'll offer his own welcome to you, the Friends of Media Studies.
Well, thank you very much, Ann. And it is great to see everyone out here tonight to come to celebrate the long tradition of media studies at the New School. Now, of course, longevity is one great marker of success, and we certainly have that. The School of Media Studies began as a program in film and media studies, and it shaped media education in the world. Our current MA in Media Studies is the longest-running U.S. program and the largest, with over 200 new students each year. Our relatively young Master's in Media Management has grown impressively, even since I've arrived 4 years ago, when it was about a little more than 50 students, and today it's a little more than 200 students, which is tremendous. Our documentary studies certificate, now in its 10th year, continues to draw students from all around the world. And the Media Studies faculty, what a group. It's an accomplished faculty of creative media makers and scholars. They collectively influence the field of media studies through the books they write, the films they make, the exhibitions they curate, and design products, and the products they create. They are dedicated teachers, but also, in the fashion of the New School, they are both university citizens and citizens of the world. When I turn to our students, they are a diverse group of creative thinkers, artists, engaged citizens, and activists. About 30% of them are from outside the U.S., which reflects not only the world, but also the New School community. And over 30% of them identify as either African American or Hispanic. And their ages range from 22 to 56 years old. Our alumni number in the thousands. They work in professional and artistic positions throughout the creative industries. They are media producers, managers of media, filmmakers, as well as social media experts. And some have even worked here. I, in fact, have had some great graduates from the media studies schools helping me with social media. And many, of course, have also shown their entrepreneurial spirit by starting their own media design companies, producing their own independent films, and securing media production commissions. Many work as independent media activists or in nonprofit organizations to manage issue-based media campaigns and to demonstrate their commitment to issues of social justice. We should all be very proud of media studies and all it has accomplished in its 40 years. But at the New School, we are always looking forward. The new in our name is about continual reinvention and relevance. During the past 4 decades, there have been rapid changes in media, and media studies has changed along with it. Media is now more integral across the New School than it ever has been before. By its nature, media is interdisciplinary. It requires creativity, technology, and most importantly, I think, a deep understanding of human interaction and user interface. And those are the strengths of the New School today. Whether it is our strong social science research program in the New School for Social Research, our new Lang Journalism and Design program for undergraduates, or a broad range of visual work out of Parsons. And finally, the linchpin is the humanistic work done here in media studies. The New School sits at that interface between design and humanistic social science. It's all about human and user interface, and media studies is the core of that. Well, nothing stands still at the New School. And I'm looking forward as media studies integrates more and more with our undergraduate college, Lang, our performing arts college, Parsons, and the New School for Social Research. And as is true of all of us, media studies must and will remain on the cutting edge. So as we remember our 40 years tonight, my congratulations go out to the founders, a number of whom are here, Dean Balsamo and the faculty of the school, our staff, students, and alumni, who have contributed to such great past success and who I am sure will lead us into success in the future. Thank you.
The School of Media Studies is one of 4 schools of public engagement at the New School. Along with the Milano School of International Affairs, Management, and Urban Policy, the renowned program in creative writing, and the innovative bachelor's program for adult and transfer students, the schools of public engagement manifest a commitment to interdisciplinary education and project-based learning. Please join me in welcoming Executive Dean Mary Watson of the Schools of Public Engagement.
Thank you, Ann. It's really a pleasure to be here tonight, and it's really an honor to congratulate all of you on the 40th anniversary of the School of Media Studies. The New School for nearly 100 years has been a harbinger of what's on the cutting edge, what's on the horizon that just quite yet can't be seen, and what's being done that people are having in their imaginations held, but which has not yet been manifest. So if you think about the founding of the university in 1919, it was a time when there was a question about what is the purpose of higher education, how should higher education engage with pressing world issues, and how could we create a university that, like no other, was really engaged in these pressing problems. In the 1930s, the university established an institute called the University in Exile. And during that period, the pressing issue was the rising fascism in Europe and the persecution of various scholars who were studying in fields and who had demographics that were under duress in Europe. And so the New School brought 189 scholars from Europe to come to create a place of free haven of intellectual discourse and to hold those faculty in exile. Moving forward to the 1970s, the New School merged with the Parsons School of Design, and I think this was a real turn for the university, a real turn in the moment, because right around the same time that the university was approaching the merger with Parsons, the School of Media Studies, then called the Program in Media Studies, was established. At this sort of precipitous moment in the mid to late 1970s, we saw a real change in the way in which the world engaged with media and design and artistic expression. And I think that was the beginning of a very long and beautiful relationship between the School of Media Studies now and the Parsons School of Design today. What we look at now at the New School is really the intersection of design and social research, and thinking about the ways that we can bring together these fields in new and unique ways to address the same kinds of pressing problems that we saw at the founding of the university, but that have new forms today. So exile is still a theme. You only have to watch the media and look at what's happening with the Syrian refugees to understand the concept of exile. And the creation of new media forms and new media making are manifest everywhere, although in my home they're mostly manifest in the bedroom of my 12-and-a-half-year-old daughter, where she's teaching me every day that the new forms that are emerging are things that we don't necessarily understand, but that things are changing the very way we think about what information, communication, and indeed meaning means. So it's my pleasure to congratulate all of you on the anniversary of Media Studies. In a bit, you'll get to meet one of our distinguished alum, Elissa Tenny, who is the President-Designate of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, one of the early graduates of the School of Media Studies and a distinguished academic administrator, and Kit Laybourne, who was one of the founders of the School of Media Studies. And you'll get to learn a lot about the long legacy of this program. But I ask you to remember, as you're looking at the legacy of the program, what David said, and that is, it's not so much about what happened in the past, it's about where we're headed in the future. And every day in this university, we are greeted by new students with new ideas and new horizons. They challenge us to make ourselves better, and it's a privilege to be here to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Tonight is the first of a series of events that we're hosting during the upcoming academic year. Over the course of this semester, we take the opportunity to reflect on the accomplishments of the program and our alumni. On October 19th, we host a special panel featuring 3 alumni who have become thought leaders in the field of media studies. After completing their MAs here in the 1990s, they went on to receive PhDs from prominent North American universities. Dr. Paula Gardner runs the Futures Lab at the Ontario College of Art and Design. Dr. Susan Murray's work on the history of television and public culture receives critical acclaim. And Dr. Lori Woolette is a frequent commenter on televisions and politics for venues such as the New York Times and National Public Radio. On November 13, faculty member Deirdre Boyle will host a curated screening of noteworthy films by our alumni. Selected from the rich portfolio of filmmaking and media studies over the past 40 years, these works span the range of filmic traditions, certainly including documentary, but also narrative and experimental. And then in the spring, we turn our attention to the future of media studies with a series of events focusing on the work of current and recent students. A second curated screening event is planned for February. In March, we host an evening of sound productions that highlights the program's long tradition in sound studies. Towards the end of the term, we host our annual student showcase events, beginning in April with the Mixed Messages exhibit that features student work in multimedia, transmedia storytelling, and interactive media. Later in April, we host the annual Fine Cuts Invitational Film Festival, where we screen the best films by current students. In the beginning of May, select students present their scholarly theses projects at the 10th Annual Critical Themes Conference. And finally, at the end of June, we enjoy a 3-day screening of the films produced by the students in the Documentary Studies Certificate Program in our annual Truth Be Told event. But tonight, before we hear the keynote address by Dr. Elissa Tenny, we take the opportunity to revisit the history of the program, in this case compiled and narrated by faculty member Carol Wilder. Could you come to the stage? Carol joined the new school in 1994 after having served on the faculties of San Francisco State University, Oberlin College, and Emerson College. From 1995 to 2007, she served as chair of what was then called the Program in Film and Media Studies. She proved to be a strong intellectual leader as well as an inspiring teacher. She led the department in its transition from a fully part-time faculty to a full-time faculty model. She took the lead in organizing special programs such as the Marshall McLuhan Award and the creation of the Dorothy H. Hirshon Film Festival. She initiated the Certificate in Media Management. She's also an accomplished scholar of political media with a deep background in rhetoric, communication, and cybernetics. She was a Fulbright Senior Scholar at Hanoi University in 2007 and 2011. Based on her work there, her book, Crossing the Street in Hanoi, Teaching and Learning About Vietnam, which was published in 2014, is a brilliant mix of storytelling and philosophy, reflecting on the way people remember a tragic war through media and cultural artifacts. More personally, I have to say that Carol has been my most reliable guide and forthright guide through the unknown territory. Blunt, some might even say, through the unknown territory of chairing the School of Media Studies. She continues to manifest a passionate commitment to making the program always better. So please join me in welcoming Carol Wilder.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Why did they laugh at forthright? When Dean Balsamo asked me last spring if I would put together a little history slideshow, I said, sure, I guess not thinking it entirely through at the time. Eventually, we collected more than 4,500 images of media studies over the past 40 years. And there's a longer version of what you'll see tonight that's sort of in rough form, but you'll see the trailer, at least, tonight. Heartfelt thanks due to University archivists Wendy Shire and Jenny Swadesh, and University marketing managers Ryan Blum and Kyle Hansen for helping in this amazing roundup. We celebrate the anniversary of the first media studies program in the US. Peter Haratonic and I agree with this, and I believe the world. There's some controversy about this claim, but I think it's fully supported by the historical record. Of course, humans have long been interested in media and communication. Witness the cave paintings at Lascaux, where a couple of years ago, someone discovered that if you hold a torch to the animal figures, they're animated, they're animations. Or Plato's cave allegory in the Republic, where he's projecting the shadows on the wall. The prisoners can only see the shadows on the wall in what can only be called an early imagination of film projection. Or Plato again in his dialogue Phaedrus, where at the end he goes on a tear about this newfangled invention called writing, which he claims will ruin people's memory and let everybody be literate. Fast forward 2,500 years, we witnessed the staggering communication revolution of the last 150 years that has changed, well, everything. It was Marshall McLuhan and some of his colleagues, notably Walter Ong and others, who first imagined media in the holistic, transformative way we do today. previously, to the extent that there was a media studies, it was siloed into radio, TV, film, broadcasting, journalism, which were all sort of very distinctive. And just because you paste the name media studies over an old broadcasting or speech program, as so many have done, does not make it so. The core principle of media studies, or at least one of them, lies in the relationship between theory and practice across comparative media. In other words, media is an environment and is appropriately studied and practiced as such. We shape our tools, and our tools shape us. Let's take a look now at some of the highlights of the media studies at the New School. The real deal, the first, the biggest, and the best, over the past 4 decades, set to music by our beloved colleague, Barry Solomon. stay here?
You have to stay here. So thank you, Carol, but before you leave, I want to present to you, on behalf of the students and the Faculty of Media Studies, both present and past, just a small token of our appreciation for everything you've done for the program.
Thank you. That was good. You did a good job. That was good. This was the final editor. She did a good job.
It now gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Elissa Tenny, who is the President-Designate of the School of the Art Institute in Chicago. Dr. Tenny received her doctorate in education from the University of Pennsylvania. We're also happy to note, as has been mentioned, that before this, she earned her MA in Media Studies here at the New School. From 1977 to 2002, she held several positions here, including acting dean and vice dean. Beyond being one of our most distinguished alumna, Dr. Tenny also served as the provost and dean at Bennington College in Vermont, where she promoted interdisciplinary and integrative scholarship. With more than 35 years of experience in higher education, Dr. Tenny joined the School of the Art Institute in Chicago in 2010 as provost and senior vice president of academic affairs. One of her signature initiatives includes establishing the Earl and Brenda Shapiro Center for Research and Collaboration. This program, I've learned, supports students and faculty in developing new forms of inquiry and in exploring transformative interdisciplinary ideas across art, design, science, business, social welfare, and cultural sustainability. Dr. Tenny also serves on the board of the Chicago Loop Alliance and the Oxbow School of Art in Saugatuck, Michigan. So we are honored that she could be with us tonight to offer her keynote presentation. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Elissa Tenny. It's nothing if not an enthusiastic crowd.
Thank you, Anne. It's amazing to be here. I've titled my talk, Pursuit of the Question, Interdisciplinarity and Higher Education, Then and Now. So let's start with the then. Then being 1975. Gerald Ford is president. Go back one. Where Gerald Ford? Gotta love the suit. The Vietnam War ends. New York City just barely avoids bankruptcy. George Carlin hosts the debut of Saturday Night Live. ABC, CBS, and NBC agreed to create a family hour in the early evening that is free of violence and sex. And Taxi Driver is filmed in New York City. At CBGB's, Patti Smith debuts, and the Talking Heads play their first gig opening for the Ramones. Bill Gates founds Microsoft. Steve Wozniak creates the first home computer. The VCR is developed in Japan. Motorola obtains a patent for the first portable mobile phone. And a motley crew of students begin their graduate work in the Media Studies program. Quite a sight, clearly before I discovered eyebrow tweezers and hair highlighting. So today, I too am celebrating my 40th anniversary of my entrance into the Media Studies program. Alas, that does make me 40 years older too. 40 years ago, I could not have imagined standing before you today. I am deeply honored and extraordinarily grateful for the opportunity to speak with you and to share with you my own personal and professional trajectory, informed as it's been by my years in the program. You see, I grew up at the New School, grew up intellectually, creatively, and professionally. I had what I call a checkered undergraduate experience, floating from school to school, unmoored with little direction. I truly believe that if it were not for the Media Studies program, my life might not have its richness and its many rewards. When I started the program, I actually was not aware that it was at the forefront of combining theory and practice. Taking classes in media theory, film criticism, television history, alongside video, photography, and sound production just made sense. John Culkin, the founder of the program, called it the liberal arts in a new key, meaning that even in 1975, to be an informed citizen in a technological society meant that you had a responsibility to understand media message making, and to do that, you had to understand the theoretical, historical, political, sociological, and economic aspects of media making, and you had to be a maker, or at least understand the basics, as I did. Meaning and making were inseparable. The program's distinctive pedagogical approach emerged at the same time that strong scholarly interest was developing in interdisciplinarity. Interdisciplinarity has been described in many ways, including the integration of existing disciplinary perspectives, the combination of disciplines, as well as critiquing and/or transcending disciplines. Researchers argue that programs and courses grounded in interdisciplinarity develop higher order cognitive skills, and that they increase students' skills of analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. Further, some scholars suggest that interdisciplinary study better prepares students for work and citizenship. It seems to me that this is exactly what the Media Studies program did for me in 1975. And as one of its graduates, I can assure you that this interdisciplinary approach has informed my career ever since. But I would also suggest that our system of higher education as a whole has much to learn and stands to benefit from embracing interdisciplinarity as well. Returning to the mid-70s once again, just what was the larger academic landscape like? Clark Kerr, who's the former president of the University of California, called the period of the 1970s the Great Transformation in Higher Education. Why? Enrollments were at an all-time high. Almost 30,000 doctorates were awarded in 1970 compared to 6,000 in 1950. There was a proliferation of new degree programs, departments, and fields of study, among them the Media Studies program. Further, women and underrepresented groups were changing the face of higher education, both as students and as faculty members. Yet, as we approached the mid-70s, enrollment started to decline due to changing demographics. Also, there was a heightened sensitivity to students having rights as consumers and as citizens of the campus community. On the surface, it would be hard to argue that such recognition and attention to students and families was not warranted. However, the form it took was the rapid expansion of the whole new arena of student services. Also, for the first time, colleges and universities focused on areas such as retention and degree completion, and the huge rise in the number of PhDs awarded led to a glut in the job market. And budget pressures in the late 70s gave rise to a marked reliance on adjunct faculty and a corresponding shift to greater influence of the administration. The alarms were ringing at the federal level as well. In 1971, a report commissioned and written by Frank Newman, a leading educational reformer, called for radical changes in higher education. The report stated, "In the post-war period, we have seen disturbing trends toward uniformity in our institutions, growing bureaucracy, overemphasis on academic credentials, isolation of students and faculty from the world, a growing rigidity and uniformity that makes higher education reflect less and less the interests of society. So, the dominant issues were changing demographics, enrollment declines, retention, governance, expansion of student services, and curricular relevance and rigidity. Sounds very familiar. Today, we still see that many of our colleges and universities are mired in rigid majors, meaningless course prerequisites, and mindless distribution requirements, with far too many students complaining about what they need to get through in terms of coursework rather than being excited about their learning. In the 2011 book, Academically Adrift, the authors conclude that large numbers of undergraduates made no significant improvement in a whole range of skills during their time in college. Students adrift is only one issue among many that are bandied about in terms of the current crisis in higher education. Others are access, affordability, accountability, assessment, and the list goes on. But again, my question is, are these new issues? Please do not interpret my comments as being cynical. I do not mean to suggest that nothing changed between 1975 and 2015, not the least of which is the price of private higher education. Rather, my purpose in pointing out some of the challenges we do share with 1975 is to bring into focus the importance of understanding our history as a way to know some of what we must work on together now. When at every turn we are told by politicians and pundits that higher education is broken, and when the federal government is threatening to make uninformed, misguided, and even dangerous incursions into the institutions we care so much about, the burden is on us, all of us, to act together to make our colleges and universities better. Well then, what do we do? As I mentioned before, I think that at least part of the answer lies in what I referred to earlier as the interdisciplinary approach, or method. What I have acquired during my time as a student in the media studies and have learned to appreciate even more afterwards. I have been very fortunate in my career to work at 3 distinguished institutions whose commitment to interdisciplinarity is unparalleled: the New School, Bennington College, and the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Each, of course, has distinct characteristics as to the contours of its pedagogy and its curriculum, but I would argue that they share a similarity in their steadfast commitment to interdisciplinarity, and to one aspect of it in particular, what I call the pursuit of the question. The pursuit of the question is analogous to what scholar Lisa Latuca identifies as conceptual interdisciplinarity, where emphasis is placed on the importance of the question rather than the seamlessness of the answer, where fostering students' ability to integrate learning and make connections beyond academic boundaries takes precedence over predetermined notions of requirements. We're encouraging students to continually ask questions, to explore from different angles and perspectives, to seek larger meaning and synergy between and among their coursework that prepares them for a life of learning and inquiry, and also prepares them to undertake the challenges of an ever-changing workplace. As I reflect back on my career in higher education, it is the pursuit of the question more than anything else that has been my guide these past 40 years. It has taught me that a curious mind is often more effective than an argumentative one. That in order to solve a problem, you need to seek out both its practical and its theoretical underpinnings. And that at both the individual and institutional level, Leadership comes out of building consensus, out of finding the connections or common ground between sometimes divergent points of view. Let me suggest 3 possible solutions out of many to some of the current and lasting issues with which we are confronted in higher education. First, we must reconsider old models of vertical hierarchies and strict departmental boundaries. We need to be thinking across and often beyond our traditional structures. And we need to promote new ways for new voices to be part of the conversation. Yes, interdisciplinarity can work as an organizational construct, and one might argue that its application is as important and compelling as its role in the curriculum. How then do the porous boundaries of interdisciplinarity play out in an institutional context? Let me give you a couple of examples. Bennington College's founding principles included the idea that there would be no curriculum. Courses would be developed based on the interests of the student body. Preposterous today, and I might add, it never actually happened. But the outrageousness of the idea paved the way for a college that to this day has absolutely no required courses, no majors, and a fierce dedication to students creating the path of their own education. And I can attest, it is not chaos. It is actually incredibly empowering. So the founders started with a very, very radical idea that settled into an exemplar of interdisciplinarity. Another example. When I was an associate dean at the New School, we had a faculty services office that was moderately dysfunctional. Actually, it was really dysfunctional. And the prevailing attitude, including my own, was let's work around it. A young woman working in the dean's office as a co-op student from a New York City public high school, and it wasn't Lab or LaGuardia or Stuyvesant, asked if she could speak with me. She questioned me as to why this dysfunction was allowed to go on, very respectfully, I might add, and she recommended to me a very simple reorganization of the office. She was right, and we did exactly as she recommended. A side note, we ended up hiring her for a full-time job, and she completed her bachelor's degree here at the New School. Yeah. So what do the progressive education radicals have in common with a 17-year-old high school student working in a dean's office? My answer is the pursuit of the question. One pursued a grand idea of what an education should be, and the other, a brave, young, new voice, questioned the status quo. My second recommendation has to do with higher education's shared governance model, which has been defined as no one person making important decisions arbitrarily without the advice of key constituencies, nor is decision-making made simply a function of a group vote. In a recent book by Bill Bowen, the former president of Princeton, and Gene Tobin, the former president of Hamilton College, entitled The Locus of Authority, they say that our model of shared governance has drifted far away from its original intentions, and it is not relevant for our times. I agree. In particular, we need a shared governance model that is about more than representation on committees. Almost 10 years ago, when I returned to school for my doctorate, one of the first books we read was Tom Friedman's The Lexus and the Olive Tree, the precursor to his very popular The World is Flat. We discussed the work in relation to the basic concepts of shared governance in higher education. To put it very simply, when the world is flat, those at the top cannot always see omnipotently over the entire playing field. Given our many challenges, responsibilities must be allocated differently and all the players need to be in the huddle. But we also need different kinds of huddles. The same old faculty committees and administrative structures yield predictable ideas and predictable responses from the respective camps. Just one example. When I served for 3 years as acting dean of the new school, one of my proudest accomplishments was the creation of what we called the core faculty in the degree programs. Before then, all faculty were part-time and contingent. Meager salaries, no benefits, no real commitment from the institution. And consequently, we had a structural and ethical deficit that not only affected faculty, but of course also affected students. Creating these positions was considered by some as a very bad idea. Yet, as the institution evolved, it was clear the legacy of faculty structures upon which much of the new school was built was no longer viable. Pursuing what was best for faculty and students became the preeminent question, rather than simply finding ways to make a broken system work. Perhaps my decision all those years ago was easy compared to what we face today, but then again, perhaps not. My third idea is that part of a newly thought out shared governance model, we need to think critically and collectively about the role technology plays in how we run our institutions. This is the very root of the Media Studies program, which was founded to research the impact of media on society and institutions, and to design innovative ways to engage people with technologies for positive cultural change. I am not talking about media as delivery systems, but to borrow from Marcia McLuhan, I am talking about media as active processes that we need to control technically, creatively, and economically. Too often we think of technology as the answer, rather than as part of the pursuit of the question. Kevin Guthrie, the president of Ithaca, an organization at the forefront of digital technologies in higher education, says, in the last decade, billions of people around the world have become connected. They are connected to each other and to products, content, and services by a new network that is enabling new forms of communication, collaboration, and commerce. Then, why, after 20+ years of the internet, prodigious advances in technology and social media forms, at least 2 generations of technically experienced students passing through our doors, and much money invested, do our colleges and universities look remarkably the same? There are many reasons for this, but one is that these issues do not tend to be part of a shared governance model. Often we see grandiose initiatives start from the top and go nowhere, and instructor or departmental-based initiatives that have great potential go unacknowledged. Many schools simply expand technologically and physically without engaging the full constituency. A final example. Before I arrived at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago as their first provost, the school had undertaken a strategic plan that was created by a faculty, staff, and student steering committee. The plan was an impressive document, and it included, among other things, a call to explore revenue-producing opportunities using online education. This at an institution that had no online courses whatsoever. Fast forward to today, we are in the second year of a highly selective and fiscally very attractive, I might add, interdisciplinary low-residency MFA studio program. It is not based in any one department and utilizes resources and faculty from around the school. This was no small feat of collaboration, of porous boundaries, and transcending disciplines. Of course, there were bumps in the road, but the strategic plan provided an institutional framework, a huddle, so to speak, a place where pursuing questions flourished and something entirely new to the institution was created. As I think about the pursuit of the question, I feel a certain joy because I, for one, will never be finished with my education. As New School founder John Dewey wrote, education is a process of living, not a preparation for living. The New School was founded as an institution of lifelong learning, as a place of innovation long before the word became an academic cliche. It has been a place of experimentation with New York City and the world as its laboratories. It's been a place where academic misfits and those intellectually adrift could find a mooring. I know that it's still such a place, and what makes it so is each of you, faculty, administrators, alumni, and students, who come here in pursuit of the question and not to find expedient answers. So what are the questions we should pursue? I do not have the answers, nor should I. Ultimately, that's for us to work out together, understanding that the worst thing we can do at any college is for the place where the answer is, why are things done this way, is because we've always done them this way. As I think back to the early years of the program, I am reminded of the words of writer Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote, "New ideas pass through 3 periods. First, it can't be done. Second, it probably can be done, but it's not worth doing. And third, I knew it was a good idea all along." If you think that it can be done, do it. If you work with people who say it's not worth doing, find different people. And before long, you'll be hearing, "I knew that was a good idea all along." Thank you.
So I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Tenny.
Please, just
okay,
enough Dr.
okay,
Tenny,
I know.
Alyssa.
So this is just a small token to remind you, you have a lot of friends here, and we wish you the best of success in your new position at the Art
Ann.
Institute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So as Carol reminded us, the Media Studies program was founded in 1975 by John Culkin in collaboration with a group of faculty that included Kit Laybourne. Together, they established the foundation of the program that we continue to build on today. Kit was particularly instrumental in establishing our theory and practice model with the creation of the Foundations of Media Design course in 1975. We're actually delighted that Kit is here with us tonight to celebrate the lasting impact of these early efforts. So Kit, I'm going to ask you to come to the stage. I'm not going to make you talk. I'm just going to say a few words about you.
Oh, boy. Maybe it's better if I talk.
Okay. Okay. So Kit is the author of the animation book, first published in 1979, that has been called one of the most comprehensive texts about the range of animation techniques, and it is still a standard text in the field. His most recent book, Mediapedia, was published in 2009 and exemplifies his accessible style and commitment to cross-disciplinary media practice. Kit has been a teacher and a mentor for both colleagues and students. In 2003, after a distinguished career as a television producer-director, he returned to the New School to establish courses in topics such as the producer's craft and the first online media design option. But as you've recounted to me, some of his most engaged teaching experiences often happened outside of the classroom, through collaborative projects with students and colleagues. He still returns to media studies frequently to guest lecture and to advise on our students' work. But in recognition of your role in the founding of the program, we wanted to do something to honor Kit in a way that was a testament to his contributions and aspirations for the program. To that end, we have selected 2 students to serve as, well, in honor of you, to serve as Laybourne Fellows, to instigate those extracurricular activities where students build community with one another, to forge new insights and hatch collaborative projects to push the field of media studies in new directions. So I want to announce that it's Man-Ling Wu in our media management program. And Lauren Gray in our media studies program. And I know you got to meet them last night, and they were very excited.
I was very excited too. It's I miss the vibe of this place, and I miss the vibe of my fellow faculty members. But most of all, I miss the vibe of people like you too. So it's nice to have you.
Yes. So I'm going to give you a gift. So I want to say, on behalf of all the faculty and students who have ever been associated with the School of Media Studies and the Media Studies programs in all of its permutations, thank you for your role in setting this program in motion 40 years ago, and come back and work with us often. Thank you. It's really great. Tonight also gives us the opportunity to recognize many others who've participated in making our history. So I want to say to the faculty and staff of the program in Media Studies, those current and past, full-time and part-time, I want to offer our appreciation for your dedication and enthusiastic engagement with the curriculum and our students. You are the heart and the brains of this program. Not only do you bring your creative passions and your intellectual generosity to your classrooms, you make yourself available in those off hours to students and colleagues as advisors, mentors, and friends. Each of you, in your own unique way, has made significant contributions to the well-being and intellectual growth of our students and the vibrancy of this institution. For that, we thank you. So would all the faculty and the staff of the program in Media Studies, current and past, full-time and part-time, please stand up. We're only on the M's. And before you leave, anyone out there whose email we don't have, please don't leave without giving us your email so that we can invite you to future events and so on. We currently engage 23 full-time faculty and more than 70 part-time faculty in both of our fall and spring terms, and then another 12 faculty during the summer. To the alumni in the audience, you came to the new school with hopes and aspirations. Being here required sacrifices on your part, financially, certainly, but also in terms of time and responsibilities to jobs and families. You trusted us to make the effort worthwhile. You trusted us to be reliable guides and mentors. You are our most shining accomplishment, and you serve now as ambassadors for the program wherever you go. And we thank you for allowing us to be a part of that journey. So will all the alumni in the room please stand? Okay, to our current students here tonight, including the many of you who are working to make this event a success. You too have come to the new school with aspirations and plans, and we recognize that you too make sacrifices to be here every day. Your education isn't a shrink-wrapped commodity that gets delivered to your doorstep. It's an unfolding and uncharted experience that requires diligence, creative and critical thinking, and thoughtful reflection, and a bit of faith to believe that in the end it will all make sense. But please know that by allowing us to witness and participate in your personal and professional paths of transformation, you have given us a great gift. You represent our hopes, not only for the scholarly and artistic development of the field of media studies, but for the creation of a more just and our ethical futures. So will all the students in the program of Media Studies please stand? And now, before we conclude, I want to say a few words about three distinguished members of the current Media Studies faculty. So would Barry Salmon, Deirdre Boyle, and Peter Heratonic please join me on stage?
Okay.
There are marks on the floor. Thank you. What a great picture. Okay. Barry Salmon joined the program in Film and Media Studies as a student in 1987. In 1990, he began teaching courses in sound studies and later in media theory. From 2010 to 2012, he served as chair, overseeing the transformation of Media Studies program into the School of Media Studies. Barry is appreciated by his colleagues as someone who always offers a welcoming smile. But he is also one of our most fearless champions. He defends our programs and our commitments when we are challenged or stretched beyond our resources. So Barry, on behalf of your colleagues and students, I want to say thank you for your goodwill and your efforts to keep the program growing. Deirdre Boyle is a pioneer in the field of documentary studies. She has a distinction of being a member of the first graduating class in media studies in 1976 when the program was still affiliated with Antioch College. In 1977, she began teaching for the program. She has been an important faculty member in the Documentary Studies Certificate Program since its founding in 2006. She directed the program from 2009 to 2012. She has taught a menu of courses on fascinating topics, including one that has become one of our most popular courses on death and media. She is one of the main reasons, I told you it's a popular course. She is one of the main reasons that our documentary studies program has world renown. She anchors us, cajoles us, and inspires us to honor our commitments and realize our potential. I'm happy to have this opportunity to thank you, Deirdre, for your contributions over the past 4 decades. Okay, and finally, let me introduce Peter Heratonic. The crowd goes wild. Peter began his career as a public school teacher here in New York. From early on, he was interested in the pedagogical uses of media technology in the classroom. In 1971, he set up one of the first video programs in New York for middle school kids as part of their social science curriculum. When he enrolled in a class with Kit Laybourne later that year, he met a kindred spirit and a lifelong friend. Through Kit, he was introduced to John Culkin, who hired Peter on the spot to teach media education courses in what was then the brand new Media Studies program at the New School. He has always been an engaging and inspiring teacher, and as he and Kit reminds us, how you teach is what you teach. And what Peter teaches to both his students and his colleagues is how to be passionate about media education. Peter served as chair of Media Studies several times. Since the mid-1980s, he's been actively engaged in building the curriculum in media management, and we were delighted when it was finally approved as a formal degree program in 2012. What I know is that there is no more loyal supporter of our programs than Peter. So for this and many other reasons, I've asked him to say a few words in closing tonight. Thank you.
Can I have the house lights? I like to see who I'm talking to. As my wife, Elissa Tenny, reminds me, if I go off script, we'll be here till midnight. So, rather than even giving any anecdotes, I'm going to go right to my prepared remarks. And thank you, Ann, and thanks to everyone. Elissa said that 40 years ago, she couldn't have imagined standing here tonight. I know how she feels. It's wonderful seeing all of you representing the many generations of alumni. In the weeks leading up to tonight, I've heard from a number of people who were instrumental in the success of the program back in the early years. Among them, Edith Wurtzel. Edith? It was people like Edith who made this program possible here at the New School when she was working in the dean's office upstairs. So there were a whole bunch of other people besides those of us who found the program. Anyway, she reminded me that we met 40 years ago just upstairs from here, a couple of feet from here, doing some busy work for the administration of the program. And she wanted to make sure I remembered that, and I said, remember it. I remember it as if it was yesterday. The only problem is today, I actually have problems remembering yesterday. So, but it is great seeing so many old faces. Excuse me. I don't mean old faces. I mean faces I haven't seen for a while. And by the way, thank you for your kind comments coming in. Because they reminded me that there are 3 phases of a man's life: youth, middle age, and gee, you look great. But speaking of looking great, the School of Media Studies is looking better than ever under the leadership of Ann Balsamo. Thank you. Thank you, Ann. Seriously. We are now a school. The MA, as has been mentioned, I think Carol mentioned it, is not only, yes, we are the first. Yes. And I don't care, as John, off script, as John Ford had them say in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, out here, right, when facts contradict the legend, we print the legend. But it's a fact. The MA remains the most innovative of its kind. Our new MS program, as President Van Zandt mentioned, has been a success beyond our wildest expectations. The graduate certificates in media management and in documentary studies continue to provide unique postgraduate learning opportunities. The new graduate certificates in media analytics and in digital cinema add 2 more unique learning options to our school. And our new undergraduate majors in film studies and media studies give another group of students access to our extensive curriculum and to our gifted and committed faculty and staff. One more round for the faculty and staff, please. Tonight is about the past, but as has been mentioned, it's also about the future. One of our goals has always been to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to technological change, and to our commitment to understanding the past in relation to the potential and limitations, I might add, of emerging media. I came in the new school, as was mentioned, as a direct result of being introduced in the early 1970s to a then new medium, the Portapack, by Kit Laybourne. Thank you, Kit. Thank you, seriously. And I continue to try to keep up with changes. I can't say that I'm always successful. Some of you may have been at the 2010 recognition ceremony where I commented that I had 37 people following me on Twitter. Now, that may not seem like a lot. The Pope has 20+ million. Until you consider, until that day, I had never sent a tweet. So then I found, this is pretty interesting. I rectified it during graduation, by the way, by asking everyone to take out their phones, and I sent my first message. Today, I want to rectify another new media oversight. I have to admit, I've never posted an Instagram. Not because I have anything against it. I love new technology, but old habits die hard. I was recently walking down the street, looking at my phone, you know, and somebody asked me what time it is. I go like this. But now to Instagram. I have to admit, I know nothing about it. Seriously, I mean, you'll find out in a second. So the first thing to do is to get some help. Where? Well, the best thing to do is to ask a fourth grader. Since I don't have a fourth grader here tonight, I do have the next best thing, a New York City school teacher who happens to teach fourth grade. Her name is Katya Haratonik, and she happens to be my and Elissa Tenny's daughter. So Katya. Okay. Now, is there anyone here who happened to take Foundations of Media Theory with me? A few people. Okay. You may remember that we discussed Shannon, Weaver, and Wiener. I bet you haven't heard those names for a while. And in one of the concepts we talked about was redundancy. In order to ensure we have an effective communication system, we need backups, we need other systems, we need redundancy. So I'm going to ask another Instagram user, who also happens to be our daughter, Tess Haratonik, to come up. Now, what I'd like you to do, right? All right, Tess. All right, ready? I'd like you to do is to take out your devices. If you have Instagram, go to Instagram and find, what is it, Peter Haratonik, right? Just look for Peter Haratonik. There's only one of us, I think. And we're going to send our first Instagram, and probably one of the first of the night, of many tweets, selfies, or whatever, and then we can go party. So, let's... All right.
Is everyone following us yet?
Got to follow it. Might stand in the middle. Come on. Come on, people are waiting.
Sorry. Got to get that good filter, you know. Okay.
Okay.
How many do we take?
Just send one. I don't know. It's the first, whatever the first is. Everybody get it? Everybody find it? I've got it. It's like I have to.
It takes a minute.
It's like dial-up modem days. Boy. While we're waiting for that, I have one last thing, and this is I'm going off script. Back in the early 70s, when I first met John Culkin, and it is a true story, the first day I met him, he said to me, we were just chatting about stuff, and Kit happened to be there that day also. He said to me, I was a New York City school teacher, he said, how much money are you making? And I said, oh, $10,000 a year. He says, work for me for 11? And I said, sure, and that's how I got started in this business. True story. But John also, during that time, had a cartoon he had found. And I remember him asking me, find a place to get this blown up. And in those days, it wasn't as easy to do. You had to go to these stat places, remember those places? And he blew up this cartoon, and he sent it to Marshall McLuhan, who put it on his mantle in the carriage house, where he ran his operation at the University of Toronto. And it was two monks sitting at desks, And one monk turns around to the other and says, "What do you mean, what's media? We're media." I'll see you upstairs in a little while, and hope you find the first Instagram. Ladies?
That's vintage media studies for you. Okay, let me officially close the program by saying thank you to all of you for being here tonight to help us recognize and celebrate the history of media studies. Thank you again, Elissa, for your presentation. It was lovely and wonderful and thought-provoking. I'd also like to thank the staff of the School of Media Studies who have worked diligently to organize tonight's event. So Leanna Bailey, Tracy Verites, Janelle McKenzie, Laura Larice, Edie Morgan, Andrea Rodriguez, Chad Phillips, Dale McDonald, Rosalie McManus, and the entire Red Dog team. Excellent. To our alumni, please stop by our alumni table to say hello, and let me know if you'd like to be an alumni ambassador. So see me sometime tonight. Now, would everyone join us in the courtyard for a light reception? Thank you and happy anniversary.